Welcome to the Business of Apparel podcast. This is the place to learn how to start and scale your own apparel brand and fill it with loyal customers for years to come. I'm your host, Rachel Erickson, owner and CEO of Unmarked Street, and I can't wait to share this episode with you. Welcome back to the Business of Apparel podcast. This week, we are kicking off a 6-week special series as we celebrate me turning 40 this year. So we are calling this our 40 to 40 countdown. If you also follow me on Instagram, you can find me going live for 40 days straight. And so we are going to be celebrating my 40th birthday this way and getting ready actually to announce some new updates with the company as we complete the series. So we'll be looking for that about 6 weeks from now. What I want this series to be about is transparency and honesty. So when I do a lot of strengths finder tests, or when I go to figure out what my values are and I get into those kind of like quizzes online, or if I'm working with a coach or a therapist and they're getting me to try to kind of figure out like, what are my biggest strengths in the world? What are my values in the world? Honesty almost always comes up on that list these days. I value honesty more than anything. And so when it comes to people that I interact with, I really want there to be real conversations, real interactions. When I find out that someone has been lying to me or someone has been kind of going behind my back and doing something sneaky, it affects me really, really deeply. And so in that spirit, I wanted to be able to start coming out and sharing a little bit more about me, Rachel Erickson, your host and the CEO and owner of Unmarked Street and the Business of Apparel. And my hope is that as you get to know me a little bit better, you can understand whether this community that we are building at the Business of Apparel and at Unmarked Street is the right place for you to be. And what I have learned a lot about marketing and social media and all of that great stuff over the last few years is that there are people who are going to be perfect for this community because our values are going to align and you are going to be able to connect with me on a little bit of a deeper level because we have a lot of things in common. On the flip side, it's actually really good for you to know if maybe I'm not quite right for you so that you can find who is quite right for you. And so my hope by sharing all of these little confessions that I'm going to do over the next 6 weeks is to help you make that decision and help me get that information out to you in a better way. So this is a little bit scary for me. When I first went out and started my brand, I knew that being on social media and needing to get myself out there was going to be a big task. I used to be the type of person who didn't even like to have my picture taken. Like if we were on vacation across the world and we were in these beautiful places, I look back at those pictures and there are beautiful pictures of landscapes and museums and restaurants that we went to. But there are very, very few pictures of me. I also hated being on video, hated listening to my voice, hating seeing the way that I look on video. And I have really had to get over that over the last couple of years as I've decided to start this podcast and as I've decided to really put myself out there on social media. But I continue to learn from my coaches that there are things that you can choose not to share with your audience and keep private, obviously, to your heart and to your home and to your own family. But I wanted to kind of take a leap forward and help to share a few things about me that might help you, like I said, understand me a little bit better, but also, number two, maybe help you understand that sharing for your business doesn't need to be so scary. Maybe some of these things that I'm going to share will inspire you to feel like, that wasn't so bad. Maybe I can share something similar. Maybe I can also share something that I was a little bit afraid to speak about before. And as we progress through the weeks, we'll get kind of a little bit deeper into some of the things that I have really not shared in any form of social media. It's actually a few things that I don't even necessarily share in public with strangers or people that I would meet. My closest people in my life know a lot of this stuff about me, but I am getting prepared to share that with you so that you, again, know me quite a bit better. So this week, what I wanted to do was start with two pretty basic confessions. Number one, I want to be really transparent that as much as I value honesty and transparency and hate lying, I absolutely lie sometimes, especially when it comes to the sake of security. So, my husband and I, when we were first living together in Columbus, Ohio, we were robbed. At that time, we were both like really young in our careers. We didn't have a lot of nice things kind of in our house, but we did have a couple of TVs. We had like a lot of DVDs at the time. Remember, this was like 15 years ago. And I had some nicer stuff from work. Like I had some really nice jackets from Abercrombie and Fitch because I was on the outerwear team. And so I had access to some of that stuff. I had started to buy a couple of nice like fashion pieces, fashion items, maybe some like higher end shoes. And we had some like a lot of like craft stuff in the basement that I was always working on at the time. We let's see, we were at work one day and my husband came home to find our garage door wide open. And as he walked in, I mean, whenever I think about this, it gives me like these chills because when I think about what he had to go through to be willing to like walk into the house by himself, not knowing like, are there still people here like who broke into the house, that like it terrifies me. But luckily in that vein, I mean, this wasn't a lucky situation at all, so it's hard to use that word, but luckily whatever had happened had already happened. Nobody was in the house anymore. We had a dog at the time and she was in the basement like going absolutely nuts. We kenneled her, so she was in her kennel like just, you could just tell she had been like high anxiety all day long. So he walked in, saw like stuff all over the place. All of our TVs were gone. All of our like high end stuff was gone. Everything was rifled through. Like if you went up to our bedroom, like all of the drawers and stuff had kind of been rifled through. Things had been pulled down off of the shelves in the closets. Things had been pulled off of hangers and clearly been taken. And then he called me and I was still at the office and he basically told me, we've been robbed. I need you to come home right now. We need to deal with this. And so, my first question was, how's Emma? How's the dog? Is she okay? And told me that Emma was fine. He was taking her for a walk so that she could kind of get some of that anxiety out. And so I told my manager, like, I gotta go, and jumped in the car. On the way home, like my brain like clicked. Apparently when he called me, I wasn't like, you go into like that panic mode and you're not really totally paying attention. And so as I'm like on my way home, I realized I need to call him and ask him if the dog's okay. So I called him back, asked him if Emma was okay again. He gave me the whole spiel again. I got home. We kind of just checked through everything. We ended up calling the police, filing a report, calling our insurance company, again, figuring out how to file a claim, which is a whole series of things that you need to be able to go through. If you really want to provide the kind of security to yourself the way that my husband and I do now because of this situation, one thing that we do on a regular basis, this is super annoying and it like clogs up your photo deck or whatever on the cloud, but probably once a year, once every other year, I go around and photograph everything that we have in our house. And that way, if anything ever gets stolen or if there's a fire, or when we were in California, it was like if there's an earthquake and we lose a lot of stuff, I have photo evidence of exactly what it was that we owned, because when you go to file an insurance claim on something like that, we, at least at the time, had to be able to list out like every single item that we wanted to be reimbursed on, the value of it, and like exactly what it was. So when I mentioned like DVDs, like we had to make a list of every single DVD that we thought that we were missing. And I didn't have a picture of it or anything like that. So we were guessing on a lot of stuff, but they wanted to know like movie titles, like what DVDs and movies are you actually missing, so that we can figure out exactly how to get you the amount of money that we owe you. So that is something that I do. There was a point in Santa Cruz where we had like a fire danger situation going on. It was really close. And we actually had some friends evacuating homes in the area. And so the first thing that I did is I got my phone out and I photographed the entire house, everything that was in it, in case something happened and we needed to be able to provide evidence of all of the stuff that we lost. So there's a little tidbit for you. But because of that, the first thing that we did that night, obviously, was we called the police, we called the insurance company, we called a locksmith because our door had basically been jimmied open, and so the door no longer worked. They were able to get our door like closed permanently and a lock put on it for the night. They came back the next day and repaired the door. And then the fourth major phone call that we made was to ADT. And so that afternoon, we were like, screw this. We'd been talking about getting a home security system for a really long time. And like, who knows why we hesitated all of that time, but this really put a fire under our butts. And so we called ADT and had them set up a security system that night for us. Are you frustrated by feeling like an outsider in your own industry? You're not alone. I spent years feeling the same way. Are you tired of endless research and you can only learn this stuff by getting a job in fashion advice? Me too. That's why I created the Business of Apparel online course. My years of insider knowledge condensed into video tutorials, demos, and downloads. Learn at your own pace, no fluff. Just key topics like building target profiles and mastering financials. This information is genuinely unavailable anywhere else. Grow your brand, become an apparel industry aficionado, and unlock millions in potential revenue. The value? Over $50,000 with millions potential for your brand. Don't miss out. Sign up for the Business of Apparel online course today at thebusinessofapparel.com/course. Ever since then, anytime we leave any of our houses, like for the last 15 years, if we leave the house to go down the street for a 15-minute walk, we set the alarm. We are pretty religious about that because of what happened to us. It just kind of sticks with you for a really long time. And so along that same vein, we've also gotten really nerdy and kind of into online security. And so, for example, if I'm filling out a form online and someone's asking me for my social security number, I will either leave it blank. If there's a way for me to contact somebody, I will actually contact somebody and say, is this truly necessary? Can you kind of go through this without me needing to provide my social security number? Look, I understand that all of this stuff is like out there, but the least that I can give it out and the least amount that I can share that with people, I find that really important. And so similar to your social security number is also your birth date. So if you're not really into like cybersecurity and the kinds of things that you should be doing with like really long passwords with crazy characters that don't make any sense, like a lot of my passwords are entire sentences. Like I take book passages and like take the opening sentence from my favorite book and put it in as my password. Like those are how crazy my password is. And instead of using O's, I use zeros. And instead of using I's, I use ones. And I'm not giving away any secrets here because I don't actually do any of that. So that was a lie that I just told you. I don't actually use the first sentence of my favorite book, but I do all that other stuff. That stuff's not a lie. And so there's a lot that we do in the way of practicing cybersecurity. And one of them is not sharing our actual birthday. So if you follow me on social media in any place, there are quite a few platforms that actually require you to put in a birth date to be able to set up a profile, Facebook being one of them. So if you follow me on Facebook and you've sent me a happy birthday message in March, which is where my birthday is listed on Facebook, I love you. Thank you so much for sending me a message. I really appreciate it. Usually I respond with like a heart or whatever, but it's not actually my birthday. We've also set up happy birthday posts to me throughout different times of each year that we've actually been on social media. And even this 40 to 40 series that is in the vein of honesty and transparency is not actually set up to lead directly to my 40th birthday, which is what we were originally going to do. We decided to set it up and still treat it as a 40 to 40 in celebration of my 40th birthday. So I do absolutely turn 40 this year. Whether you know if I already turned 40 or if I have yet to turn 40 depends on your knowledge of me personally and whether or not you actually know my birth date. But that is something that I wanted to just put out there, that in the name of security, and just even though I want to be an open book and I want to be super honest about everything, we do lie and we fib in quite a bit of our information to make sure that it's really hard to find any of that about me. And hopefully I didn't just put that information out there and create any issues. But so if you're interested in learning a little bit more about cybersecurity and what we do, we use password managers. that are super secure. The way that we like write down our passwords instead of saving them in like a document that's saved on like I would never save all of my passwords in Google Docs because it's out on the cloud. And if someone were to hack my my account, they could definitely get all of that. So that's some stuff that we have definitely gotten really into, and we've made sure that we keep everything really safe. Beyond that, the other confession that I really wanted to make today was something that ever since starting my business, there's lots of like little tidbits of information that you get as you start your business for like how to live a CEO lifestyle. And my other confession for you today is that I rarely follow any of those rules. So one of the first things that a lot of people start to say to you online, like if you're getting into a CEO role, is wake up at 5 a.m. You're part of the 5 a.m. club. Like get up super early, get work done first thing in the morning. You want to beat the crowd. You want to be, early bird gets the worm. I do not do that. I am not a 5 a.m. person. I'm not even a 6 a.m. person. Like lately, we've been like 6:37, 7:30. I have never been a morning person. When I was in high school, I was the kid who slept until noon every day, and my mom would like have to start doing dishes downstairs and kind of clanging things around to be like, Rachel, wake up, like we've been awake for like hours. And so it's actually been a really big adjustment to me to even become like a 7 a.m. type of person. And so I do not follow that rule now. When I wake up at 7, I have coffee with my husband first thing. I've been trying to get in a workout first thing and then kind of get myself ready for the day. I start like my work day not until 9 a.m., which is great. So it gives me a couple of hours in the morning to kind of have a morning routine, but it is definitely not a 5 a.m. morning routine. I think the other thing that people really talk about a lot is, you could start your business and have plenty of time to do this. Like think about how much time you're wasting watching Netflix. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that one. And for me, I am a TV person. I was growing up, I grew up in the Midwest. We almost always had the TV on. We watched TV during dinner. If we were like all kind of like wandering around the house doing different things during the day, the TV was kind of on in the background. Sports was always on. Like we were always watching football or baseball or something like that. And I also really grew to love movies. So when I was in junior high and high school, if anybody was asking me like, do you want to go do something? It was either, do you want to go to the mall and wander around and maybe do a little bit of shopping, or do you want to go to the movies? And I saw so many movies as a junior high school kid. That was basically where I was all the time. And so because I have this love for movies and because I kind of grew up on this like TV culture, I actually felt like getting the chance at the end of the day to sit down and watch a movie with my husband was the ultimate treat for me. And so when I think about reasons why I started my business and reasons why I became a CEO, being able to treat myself with things like that was one of the reasons. And so when people say to me, like, how much time are you wasting watching Netflix? I like in my head, I'm going, that's why I did this. I set up this company and I wanted to get freedom of time and I wanted to get freedom from, the corporate lifestyle, so that I could absolutely sit down every night and watch a movie with my husband, because that's what I love to do. It is like one of my favorite activities. And so when people are asking you those kinds of things, become part of the 5 a.m. club, ask yourself if that's really for you. Are you actually a 5 a.m. person? Like waking up at 5 a.m. can be really hard if you're not a morning person. I've tried it a couple of different times and I am not very nice throughout the entire day because I'm cranky. I'm cranky that I had to wake up at 5 a.m. So what is the use of that? Like I would rather be a kind person, wake up a couple of hours later and have still a decent morning routine. And the same thing, like if you enjoy your time watching Netflix, I was talking to a friend recently who said who kind of felt really, really guilty about sitting around and watching this show on Netflix. And I was like, well, are you enjoying it? And she was like, yeah, I'm loving it. I was like, then what are we worrying about here? Like, I totally get that a lot of people feel like that's a waste of time. But if that's where you get pleasure and joy out of life, like, I don't know, I just kind of feel like that's something that you should be building in. And if movies and TV aren't your joy thing, like, okay, totally get it. Stop wasting your time on Netflix. You don't need that stuff. You can absolutely spend more time on your business or being outside or doing what does bring you joy. But I just wanted to confess today that that is absolutely where I spend my evenings. I spend my evenings in front of the TV, and I don't wake up until 7 a.m. So if you are looking for a CEO who doesn't follow any of those rules that are kind of being thrown at you as soon as you start your business, you can know that I am doing none of those things. And I would consider that we're actually doing really well as a company. So you do you is what I kind of want to say from that. And yeah, if this was helpful to you in any way and you learned anything from this episode and you want to share with me, or maybe you have a similar experience and you just kind of want to let me know what your experience is, I would love, love, love to hear from you. If you are watching on YouTube, you can comment below the video, and I have been really good about making sure that I get back to everybody as much as I can. You can also reach out to me anytime at unmarkstreet.com/contact and send me a message. Last but not least, if you like this episode and you're looking forward to the next few, please leave us a review and let others know what you think of this podcast so that they can also find it and we can kind of start figuring out how to grow this audience. So thank you so much for listening to my confessions today. I'd love to hear from you if you get the chance, and I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to the Business of Apparel podcast. I would so appreciate hearing your thoughts on the show, and if you know someone who could benefit from it, please share it with them. My biggest desire is to help other apparel professionals understand the nuances of our industry so we can all work toward making better product for a better world. If you would like to connect further, I'd love to invite you to send me a message through my website, thebusinessofapparel.com, where I do weekly trainings through my YouTube video channel, a weekly newsletter, blog articles, and so many more resources to help you start and scale a profitable apparel brand. This podcast is produced by Box 7 Media, who I cannot speak highly enough of. If you're looking to start your own podcast, you can reach out to Jeremy at Box 7 Media on LinkedIn anytime.